Are we on? All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Luther Tea Dance Company's inaugural Playdate. This is our first public activity. Let's hear it in the room. Fun. For formal about it. But I'm so excited to bring you and all of you who are in the room with us, because this has been a long time coming. I don't know. What do you think about all that? 10 years in the making.
Yeah.
Playdate. And it's just what it sounds like, right? It's bringing together a collision of wonderful, incredible AAPI and H-identifying dance makers from the field and some incredible dancers talking about intersectionality and all of these important political, emotional, social, we're informal here. Yeah, and how we can get together and say, like, as artists, right? Improvise, create, do movement research in terms of dialogue, interesting and amazing thought leaders and community members, right? So for me, it's really close to my heart. My name is Michelle Smith, and I'm the founding artistic director. And it's just nice to have this with not just transactional, it's about our performance, right? It's about the final end of Luther Tea. Finally, a place where we can present and uplift other dance makers and capacities from different parts of their careers. And so for me, it's just really exciting to partner with our community, different leaders here, Matt, our new executive director. And just our important and wonderful friends right here. We have, as usual, Erin O'Malley and Wendy O'Malley here. Thanks for being here. Kylie is here, our newest member of the Luther team. Thank you for being here. And I'm also going to introduce John Paul, my associate artistic director, and also our first Playdate, our inaugural cast, right? Jenna Mehta, Marka Patel, Ramita Ravi, and Tuki Lang. So nice to have all of you. Oh, and our board chair is Rosie Jenna, Natasha, everyone. So I'll have also the dancers who are involved, just say your names quickly, and then we'll get into it. We want to hear questions from all of you. We want to hear questions from social media, anyone who's on Zoom. And if you're watching the Twitter, time travel with us, go ahead and throw some questions for us in our social media group. Okay, we're ready to get started? All right, let's play. I feel like I'm a game show. Yeah. So dancers, can we go down the line for some of our dancers and just say our names? I think we'll have people kind of coming in at different times. Can we start with you?
My name is Vinayani.
And who are you? Yeah, who are you sort of dancing?
I was brought in by Bertha. I come from a classical background, Bharatanatyam, Kuchipudi, and a little bit of Kathak, which is what she specializes in. So it's been really cool doing all the things that we're doing this 2 weeks.
Great.
Not very classical.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jules Mara, and I came in with Tuki Wang. I dance professionally in the contemporary and hip hop world in LA.
Yeah, great. So great to have you.
Hi, I'm Michael. I became a company member like this month.
Yeah, just
Recently, 10 days ago. And I'm happy to be here working with Ajinta. Nice to meet you.
Great. I know, like I said, we're gonna have some people rolling in, but I want to talk to our amazing first cohort. Like I also have to say, it's so impressive what you've done. It's only been 10 days, right? We have a 2-week residency period. I'm not gonna say too much more about it. My first question is this. One of you can answer. What is Playdate? Like, what is it? What are we doing? What are you doing in here for these 2 weeks? Just one of you just want to kind of summarize what that is and what it means to you.
I think for me, Playdate is all about enjoying the process. I think I came with like no expectations, and that's just what Playdate is all about. Coming with like just no expectations and having to play with collaborators who are like-minded, but also different in their own unique ways, and just enjoying and playing with each other and the dancers and really adapting to the environment.
Nice. Yeah, because you all have such different practices, forms, different backgrounds, obviously different experiences in your life. So I wonder how many of you sort of either heard of each other or kind of knew each other before versus were just strangers, or like some of you didn't ever meet your dancers before this. Anyone want to speak about that?
Sure. I think I could speak for the three of us. I think we all know each other, right?
Yeah.
Janelle, me and Ramita from like the New York scene of dance.
Yeah.
Tiki was surprised, and he was surprised when we got here, or learned like he got selected. It was interesting, to bring dancers along. I think for myself personally speaking, I was thinking about like, who are some New York dancers I could bring with me, but timing, of course, scheduling at this time, especially with the end of the pandemic in a way. So I found Benigni through a friend of a friend who showed me her TikTok. And I was like, oh, you can play with this. And kind of just adding back to what Janelle was also adding, I think what Playdate for me has meant, yeah, I came with zero expectations, except that like I knew I was going to work with very high quality people and minds, that we were going to create something of quality, whether there was an end product or not. And that it was more of like how do minds come together from various backgrounds. So a part of me was like, oh, I've never worked with Ramita and Janelle. It would be cool to work with them, but I'm like, oh, but I also don't know Tuki. So I'm like, what if Tuki and I got paired? I wonder what we do, which is what happened.
Yeah. And then just a little bit more about that for the folks that are here and those are tuning in or from the future. And Caroline is here from the Music Center. Thanks for being here, Caroline, and supporting us. What is that like? Like, what do we mean about the pairings for the Playdaters? Can you explain a little bit more about that?
So it was actually like a speed date. We, after 1.5 day, we know each other, met each other, and share workshops, and then we have different styles, and we talk like have one-on-one for 1 hour and switch, just like speed dates. And we like kind of played a rank list to pick like those 3 like ideal candidates, and John helped us to figure that out.
He matched it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, did some creative math to figure out who had picked who.
Yeah.
Range.
Yes, I love Tuki calling it speed dating. I love that.
Yeah, it's
We
very
sometimes do that in Zoom, and we definitely did it a lot during the pandemic where we would have Zoom gatherings, and then I would call it speed dating. Matt had to do it for me, where I was like, 1 minute in a room with each dancer or a donor or this, or my parents showing up, and it would be, it's such a really exciting and fun way to get to know dancers and sort of take away the formalities. Sometimes it's daunting from an accessibility even standpoint for members of the public to talk to dancers and so I love that you put it as like a speed date moment, because you had, what was it again? An hour, right? That's all John Paul gave you, was an hour to pair and kind of talk about process and what they wanted to do. And also just like what they're formed for, like how do they approach it? And then what was the second way of like learning? Yes, speaking, we did all our intros and all that wonderful stuff. In the first week, we met the dancers, and you brought your own dancers, right, to meet and collide. What was another way of like learning and knowing about each other?
Yeah, well, so we all showed up. I think some of my favorite parts have been just the conversations we've had and dialogue. So we introduced ourselves and like our backgrounds, dove into kind of where we came from, how we approach our work, but then also Achinta led us through like a really great conversation about what it means to be an Asian American artist and what comes with that. I have like a really nice word map of like words like dismantling and Asianness and scarcity and just what it means to be in this space. And then we've also met with a lot of amazing folks like Erin, and we met with Satrang, which is an LGBTQ South Asian organization. We met with movers who are disabled and non-disabled. We met with, we went to the Tyco project. So we've just learned in all of these really intersectional ways, which is amazing and has been like one of my favorite parts.
That's cool. Yeah, the leaders. And I think that's an important part of it too, is just having this first cohort be positioned here in LA. Like obviously that's our home as Blue 13, and we have such strong relationships for, over 20 years with places like the Music Center and of course our wonderful board members and friends. So for me and us, it was really important that, we happened to, of all the applicants that came in, and having the ones that we thought would work best together, that were really great quality, that were credible movers and thinkers, right? That really were like in touch with our abide philosophy. And those of you who are out there, that's our guiding principle of Blue 13, which starts with access, belonging, inclusion, diversity, equity, not just like as a fun acronym on the wall, like a Ted Lasso believe thing. I was just picturing that, but not just that, but also like something to self-check, constant self-check. What are we doing as a board, right? Who are we as an organization? Who are we with our collaborators or strangers? Like who's allowed in? And I think a lot of our partners that have been coming in on that were also really, abide as some part of that philosophy, and these four makers is definitely part of theirs. Which is a long way. I'm just saying one other way for us also as dance people, dance and movement is a way of knowing, right? It's a different way of knowing. You hear me tripping over my words right now too. For us, yes, the intellect is there. We can talk about these things a lot, but when we move and share our movement with each other, it's a completely different way of knowing, right? So that level of play, it's giving me the chills a little bit right now. That level of play and to witness that, and be a part of that with each other, strangers or not, is a different, very, there's like a kinship there, right? That's very different, that I always call like civilians, that's what I call non-dancers. It's a different way of knowing, right? So what I was trying to lead you into is to say, each one of these wonderful dance makers also led movement workshops.
Yes, for me to share that.
Yeah, so which is no great. And how, just can you tell anyone want to tell us dancers also, how was it taking the workshops? How did that kind of pull you into that practice or their sort of position in their making or any of your artistry?
Personally, the first day was just so interesting because we went from, Parka's workshop, which we worked on rhythms and like syncopation and very like structured, rigid things. And then we went to Tuki's and we started with this like warm up where we're all just kind of like moving in like the most random ways. And coming from a classical background, I've never done that before, like ever. And so it was just such a like dichotomy between the two that was so interesting. And I'm sure I didn't get to make it the second day, but I'm sure that was also something similar you guys noticed with yours. But that was really good.
Yeah, and it was also just really cool not knowing that y'all were gonna be partners, and then after taking both of y'all's workshops, like working with you, because I also wasn't there the second day, but working with y'all was like actually really, really, really cool because I got a taste of what you do for your own practice, and then you guys both have collaged it together, like both types of energy, both like ways of working, and it's really nice to see from day one.
Great. Yeah, anything else about learning from each other from the workshops?
I think for me personally, I mean, like again, like Vinayani said, I come from a very structured Indian classical, specifically Kathak dance background where there's space to explore, of course, but there's a way of doing things. And so I think the last time I took classes similar to what Chiki, Ramita, and Jane all took us through was probably in high school, which is many years ago now. So there's a different type of, I think personally, like just mindset and level setting you need to do, like, okay, you're a professional dancer, but you told me this way, it's been a while, like, how do you do this? Like, and there's a lot of young people in the room, and I think I'm one of the older people, and regardless of that, but it's just like that taking in people's energy and just kind of, I think the dance floor became in those moments for me just, I don't know, just again, like a playground, right? Like there's just fun, thriving energy, and everyone was a little scared taking each other's workshops. I felt, I don't know about the dancer choreographers, but dancers were like, oh, how do you do this rhythmic thing? Or how do you like, Jane Owens was not expected in my eyes. I was not I mean, either one of them, I was not expecting what I did. I was like, what are they making us do? But
Cool.
it was a really good push after a long time for myself, just to the edge of the cliff. And I'm like, okay, I'm ready to jump, right
Love
into.
Oh, that's great to hear. Well, there's that also the piece of it. Part of that word bank of like setting up, I think, expectations and what this is. And it's a real learning space for us too. It's like, what is Playdate? How can it grow? Like, what's going to happen after? How do we morph and change this? Does it become something that lives on both coasts? Does it become something that's larger? We have larger, like, what is it going to be later? So even informing all of you, hearing from you and being part of that is important for us. It's not just, yes, it's for you, but also it's so important for us, just like as working in the field, and in LA especially, just because, I guess we're always known as just the the silver screen town. There's a lot that goes on out there in the dance sector and in the field, which is problematic, which is sort of pigeonholed LA as a space that is not artistic. It is entertainment, and a whole bizarre binary that we know is rooted in white supremacy that says that all of the Black and brown forms are
entertainment and space and they're for TV and that doesn't matter and that's not high art. So it's really exceptional to especially be in a place like the music center, which where we have, I'm like looking at Caroline, right? Debbie, no, which is amazing to be here to support something like this, right? Where we know this has historically been a place where there used to be only ballet, right, on the stages here, and very white Eurocentric forms and all of that. So it's just, again, positioning LA and like talking about it out loud out there. It's like, excuse me, yes, we do all the things well. We do the community amazing engagement and activations. We do the quote unquote concert work out here. And we do the beautiful TV and film work out here. We do education out here, and all of those at the highest level. And all of those, when we're talking about from a Playdate perspective and the AAPI perspective, what diversity and what's the word, virtuosity exists within us, what multiplicity, right? Even you three who identify as South Asian, not one of your practices or movements looks or feels or is about the same thing. All four of you as Asian, not one of those perspectives is exactly going to be the same, right? There's so much to uncover. And just in this one cohort of 4 dancers and all these incredible, 4 makers and all these incredible dancers, we're like uncovering so much in this. So just imagine working for it too. Just, I know I shouldn't even be talking this much because I'm not part of Playdate, but it's so exciting to me to even just hear you talk about what you've learned from each other. And speaking of that, who is paired with whom? So you ended up those first 2 days, you did your speed dating, you learned your workshops, who were together? Okay, you two. Have been paired with you two. So can we hear from you? What the process has been like over these past 10 days of making work, knowing that yes, on the 23rd at 7:30, and this might be back in time for you again out there, but at Stomping Ground, we're doing a work in progress, sort of sharing. What is that for you? First of all, what are you making? What are you doing? And then we'd love to hear from the dancers too about like, how has it been for you? You can tell on your wicked choreography. So Jenna, the rest of it?
Yeah, I think for me, personally, I'm really enjoying the process with Ramita. Never expected that, we do something which is so interactive with the audience.
Oh.
And the only thing which I'm gonna say is that it's a murder mystery. It's a mystery, so can't say much about
We can't give it away. Can't give it
we cannot give it away, but yeah, but just having something so theatrical, and also like, with the choice of songs that we've had, and I think it was just something so surprising when we came up with this concept, and we came up so randomly. I mean, when we were talking, about types of dances in a club, and from there we kind of really dived into it and came up with this murder mystery in a party. And yeah, I think that also the process in general with our compositions and just as dance makers have been really different. But how we're integrating it together in different pieces within that entire piece is just it's quite fascinating how we've really meshed that. At the same time, let's say if I'm working on one solo and I'm doing the composition of it, I'll give that over to Ramita. She'll finish it off, and then she'll add her own nuances to it. So today we kind of really switched up the pieces that we've worked on last week, and we were just finding different nuances and qualities within each dancer at the piece, and seeing if how we'd like to change few things, or develop it further.
Nice. Yeah, that's great.
I'll jump in. Oh, yeah, I think that it's been really cool because we've known each other for a while, and I think there's a lot of similarities in like the work that we do and can do. And I think like this is just totally out of left field what we created. And I think it honestly has like challenged my perception of like myself and of like what it means to be South Asian, what South Asian people like can create, what Asian people can create, because I don't know. I think like as much as I try not to, I put myself into those boxes too of like, okay, I really want to like make a statement with this, or like, through the casting of it, through like the storytelling of it, like I want to like say something meaningful, and that's not untrue here, but like this is just taken it a step further in which like our cast is super diverse, but we're telling something that has nothing to do with like any identity, but it's like all of the songs pretty much are like by South Asian artists, actually, even if they're like English songs, or if we have some Hindi songs. And yeah, just our process has like totally pushed us outside of the realm of like what you'd expect, I think, us to create together. So it's cool, and it feels very practical, and like a lot of these skills can be transferred to stage or to TV, and like how you would collaborate with like a co-choreographer or an associate choreographer in those settings. I just think it feels very awesome. Yeah.
Like, even though we've known each other for a while, I think, like, we've never worked together or literally met one-on-one.
Yeah.
Uh,
like so many
It's been through
Yeah.
social media.
Right.
So, and also like just the only expectation probably I had was just to be uncomfortable in the space.
There we go.
And it was amazing.
Yeah.
Did you
to
achieve
be-
that?
I did, I totally
Yeah.
achieved that. And that was the whole playground. Yeah.
That's
Okay.
exciting to hear. And just a little further too, do you think the expectation is of your work, and how this is a departure? Like anything specific about, you both have really large sort of commercial followings and social media followings. Do you think the expectation from your friends and fans or family would be very like wowed, but in which way is it a departure? I just was hearing you say how different it is compared to what you thought.
Well, like, I think it's just easy to see us on the surface, and like we both do a lot of like quote unquote Western styles, like ballet, contemporary, jazz, and then also do a lot of Indian styles. And I think the like very, very obvious on the surface thing would be for us to do some kind of combination of that. And like that actually isn't at all, it's just like not at all related to what we're making. And I think that's really cool. And also that's not even who we are. I think like people put those labels on us
Sure.
for whatever reason.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I love that. And one more about that. We know it's a murder mystery. Exciting and hilarious. I love that there's humor in it. I only saw one rehearsal so far and I titillated. And you said there's some interaction with the audience. Can you tell us anything else about the style of the piece? Or, I mean, I'm pushing back in a gentle screwdriver way of saying about expectation and defying that, like how is the piece different, and saying, oh, it's not really making a statement about our cultural or heritage. I'm just wondering, but isn't it so? I'm just wondering.
I mean, like, to be honest, the way that we have broken it up is like there are a series of different pieces, different genres. So like the two that I guess I primarily focused on, one is like jazz and she's wearing heels, and then another is contemporary, and it's duet that we kind of both built together. And this, I guess the finale has like a little bit of street jazz, a little bit of everything, but that's like, it's just like how I like to dance. I don't know. And there are a lot of songs by, like I said, South Asian artists, but also just, you know, music that like we like to listen to. And I all of that is a statement in and of itself, because like I happen to look this way and like be who I am, but like this is how I like to create art. So I think it's like similar.
Yeah, for us, I think what was important is that our intention is aligned, and we were going with the narrative.
Yeah.
So we didn't want to stay away from, you know, what the narrative was, and we were really focusing on what does this narrative require and need. Does it require like a little like a jazz piece? Does it require more interaction, or does it have to be contemporary duet
Sure.
or hip hop? Since it's a party scene, we really wanted to make it social.
Yeah.
And the way we came up with this whole interaction with the audience was, through these social dances and just kind of recognizing and breaking that wall between
Yes.
the audience and the dancers,
I love
and just
that.
making them have fun with us and
Yeah.
party with us
That's great.
until they know that it's a
Until they get murdered.
yeah, once, but that's also a surprise.
Well, thank you both so much. And then from Tuki, would you care to share about just the process and playing what you're making?
Yeah, and like me and Baka, we came from so like a totally different background. For me, I have contemporary and the Chinese folk dance and Chinese traditional dance. Mainly I'm being trained in class in the US and in UK. So my body has been influenced by a lot of contemporary elements. But I also have like a root of Tai Chi, like love being move around grounded. And the Bubaka, she came from really, really authentic traditional Kadaka dance. And I love the way she executes things and being super detailed when she's providing the workshop. And I learned so much. And so we just jump into the lab and create some chemistry, and it's just so much fun for me. And like I love what we created so far. And then yeah, you can.
Yeah, I can answer that. I think so. I think what was interesting for Tuki and I was that when we did our like speed date, Tuki had an idea of what she wanted to do. And I came with a blank canvas. And I like in collaborations, I'm more like, okay, if that's what you want to do, like let's do it. And let's find a way and I'll find my way in the process. And I was okay with it. But it was interesting. I think Tuki had an idea and I had a moment of discomfort. I'm like, I don't want to do this idea because it really creates discomfort in me. And I don't know if that idea I wanted to spend like 14 days working on. I was very honest with Tuki. She's like, okay, we don't have to do that. I'm like, okay, good. Because I think a lot of us, I mean, you've never collaborated with another choreographer before, and neither had I. And always creating my own works and have dancers work with, and so it was interesting when we both shared that. So I was like, okay. And I meant what I said in my application is that for me, it's a place of play and openness and kindness. Like if that's what they want and I have no like qualms about it, like I don't need to put my stamp on something. So what's been interesting in the process is that I, as a Kathak dancer, like I've been trying, it's like a little chicken trying to come out of the egg a little bit, right? Like trying to like mold my style into what feels like this is the way of telling some story, that it doesn't have to look like Kathak all the time. And so it's interesting because since I've been experimenting on my own, coming to Tuki and working with her and the way she asks questions, and I'm like, and part of me is like, let me work with Tuki if I can, because she'll force me to think things I'm not thinking about. Not that like Janelle and Ramita wouldn't. So that's been happening a lot between us. Like, what if this? What if that? What if we like completely just took this away? And I'm like, oh yeah, let's do that. And then we just keep adding to each other's like questioning. and we felt really like how Janelle was saying for him and Ramita, how do we not make it look like contemporary Chinese folk, contemporary dance Chinese folk, and then Kathak, and then it's just like you just slap it together, because sometimes we see that often, right? Like where you just add a little bit of footwork somewhere or some gestures and some spins. And we're like, how do we like make, okay, we've used some gesture, like how do we make that look something like that a little, right? Right, exactly, right. And like, and there's always like this, what if you like pushed it this way? And so Tuki and I think very rarely in the piece have gone away from each other. Like maybe there's only one part where like Tuki created something and I created something and it's just there's like separation, but otherwise like everything has each other's like influence on it. Yeah. And I guess we didn't talk about our theme.
Yeah, tell us.
But yeah, you want to talk about it?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
so like when we from like talking and the Baka talk about the Gali image, the
Gali.
yeah, the Gali image. And then I think about, oh my God, there is something in China, we have this similar image. And these two can have some chemistry and like some interesting to work on, because like it's so distant and but also it's so like, but they are possessing and just like they look the same, they like look alike, similar, but they are like act do things differently and they have different way to create the generosity and the two like
Yeah, like there are two energies. One is very compassionate, one is very fierce, but their pathway for whoever is following these energies is a pathway of generosity, whether it's coming from a fierce lens or a compassionate lens.
Wow, love that.
So it's interesting. We're like kind of bringing those ideas together. So there's no real story, which is kind of fun because I guess in Kathak or in classical dance, you're always like telling a story and it's linear at times. So I love the like breaking out and doing something very abstract.
Yeah, and also like, because we know this image from two cultures, like in Asian years, and it's been like thousands of years, and this two image has so many history. But how can we put this two in a more contemporary perspective of the like as a contemporary being, and how we can like sense this two and put it in the more modern way, and just like more embody this two energy. And we also kind of utilize the technology a little bit.
I love that. I just also love the disruption of the idea that we're talking about like Chinese folk dance, classical and Kathak, and you're disrupting that, and you're talking about technology, right? And that you're also like not doing a linear storytelling thing, but you two like commercial jazz, or doing the narrative. Like, what? That's so great. And then unfortunately, we don't have your dancers here right now, but we have your dancers looking at it. Anything to share about your choreographers and the process, or what it's been like for you, or anything about the piece?
We were just talking about this today, actually, because the way that they were explaining it too is right. Like one of them will suggest a move, and then the other will be like, well, what if we did this? Which is like totally out of the realm of the style of like one person. So every move almost has like both influences, and so it's so like unique to, I feel like either style, like them coming from a contemporary style, me coming from classical, and it's like, it's just so different, but it's awesome because both of their flows are present.
That's great. Wow.
I also feel like a lot of the time we're making a lot of like visuals, like you were saying, like we don't spend a lot of time apart, but we're moving a lot together. Like, and like, it's like we're transforming images, and like, instead, like you were saying, we're not going for like a picture, we're going for the energy of that person in the picture. And so it's really nice being able to work on those abstract ideas with the support of a whole group. It really does feel like we're like have completed the group, and we're like all working together throughout the whole rehearsal. And it's really nice because like y'all like listen to our opinions and our ideas and like hear us out, and then like we all like get together and like ask questions. Like it's really nice co-work.
Yeah, because I was gonna say too, I think maybe before I started, I was kind of expecting that I would come in and would have some choreography set and just kind of learn it and do it. But it's been like, we're so present in their creative process as well. And they're like, you know, posing us and framing us and asking, okay, do you think this would be easier? Like our opinions are also very valued, which is like just cool to be a part of.
Yeah, it's nice when choreographers ask you, it hurts too much.
I had a question. Ramika mentioned some of the partners that we've had, some people who came in and spent some time meeting with you, Marissa Hamamoto from Infinite Flow and Gishani from Saffron. Who else have my list here? Directors Aaron O'Malley and the Taiko Project. I am curious if, because you were able to spend time with each of them and it kind of gleans wisdom from them. I'm curious, what are some of the takeaways? What are some of the lessons that you picked up from your time with them?
Could I like add one thing before we all get
Please.
into it? I feel like when you're in a residency, typically you get space, money, and time. Is that right? Yeah. Space, money, and time to create. And then that's it. And then maybe you have some sort of relationship with the person who's hosting the residency because it culminates in some showing, or maybe not. But this has been the most interactive space because what more? I mean, yes, we can get space, time, money to create work, which is awesome. We can also create in our bedrooms, but then how do you connect with people in the industry? So I'm like, for a while I was like, oh, I just want to keep creating dance. Like, why do we have to pause and do these talks? And I'm like, wait a minute, this is exactly what I've been craving. Connecting with people in the industry, other people, just making friends, and just, I don't know, like sharing stories. And now we could share, like, I think we all have been feeling that. We're kind of like, no, can we have more time to create? We're like, no, but it's kind of really cool. We've met Aaron and Dintai, and I mean, when would I would have never had access to meet someone like Aaron O'Malley or Dintai or even Marissa. Like, why would I? And it's got my mind thinking in ways like, oh, like I'm asking certain questions that they've asked or they've asked on their own journey.
That's great.
I'll stop.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that just like intersectionality is like the word that keeps popping out to me in every type of way. Like I think Yeah, I come from like a commercial and theatrical background, so like talking about TV film felt more like, okay, like I understand this world versus today we were talking like about music center programming. I just like don't do live stage and I don't do concert world and like that's not like something I'm familiar with. So I was like, I just have no, like, I have no frame of reference, but then they were, asking all these amazing questions. And I think it's just like pushing us in all of these different ways to become more multifaceted artists, whether that's talking about like intersections and identity or in like types of work or in like where our art can be presented. And I just think like I've never been part of anything that is like gives that's given, especially Asian American artists, like this type of platform to access all these things. And I think it's like really powerful and we'll just like keep growing. So I think it's really
She said it all.
She said it all.
Being here, like, yes, think of being here at the music center. So we're day one of our 2-day part of the residency at the music center. We've been stomping around this whole time. We did little field trips here and there, like we were talking about. Like, what about today was different or inspirational about being in this room, in this iconic, these halls and space? Or even the lunchtime where you just, I don't want to say what you did if you're gonna talk about it. Can one of you talk about today or at the music center in general about how?
I think for me, so I'm a BFA graduate from USC Kaufman. And and I think just being at the music center is just like a dream.
Yeah.
It really is. And being in the studio space, being in, just walking in the corridors, having this wristband, it's a dream come true. So, but yeah, for me, I'm just so glad that I could be, in this building and actually create, just practice and play here. Just having that opportunity to interact with Caroline and seeing her at the show. Yeah, it's really nice.
I think getting into space, being able to, it's interesting, like why our space is so important, like a music center. When I briefly lived in LA during the pandemic, I remember walking around, I'm like, wow, what's this very Lincoln Center looking like space? Sorry. No, but just, it was like a very iconic space and I'm like, wow, like really important stuff must be happening here. Like this looks like really official. And I mean, I didn't end up staying in LA for too long, but I was like, oh, like I have no idea about the dance, the live stage world of LA. I knew it of New York. So obviously I'm comparing in my head. And I think when you come and I'm like, oh, this is where we're going. And like, wait, I don't know anything about this space. And I think when you're a young dancer or when you're coming out, you're trying to build a career, I think like spaces like these just, I hate to say it because it's just a thing and I like want to get philosophical about it, but they just feel validating, right? When you're in a space like this and you're like, wow, am I really sitting in this venue? Like, because I saw it from outside and I'm like, and I think at that time in 2020, there was like, I mean, I'm sure there's a poster of like the very fancy dance company, and I'm like, I don't think I've ever. Was it 13? It was.
There's one out there right now. Go.
Well, what I mean to say is that, you see these iconic companies and you're like, yeah, maybe I'll just rent space to do rehearsal one day on my own like turf. And like, maybe I'll never get to present here. And that's still like a very far-fetched dream, but like to have access, to come into a space that could feel like, wait, how did I get here? Who let me here and how? And I would have never done this on my own. It's something that I was thinking about as I was driving. I'm like, I can't believe I'm going to this venue today. When 3 years ago, I was like, I don't know anybody in this space. How am I going to access this space?
Right.
I know things in New York. Like, who do I know here? Which is primarily the reason of why I was like, oh, I hope I get into this residency. Like, I wonder, like, it would be great to know the LA dance people. And then when, like I said earlier, like, you get into a residency, you do your stuff, and then you leave. But then here it's like, oh my gosh, I know like 20, like 30 new people that are now in my network, and I'll do the work hopefully to like stay in touch and whatever. But like you have new friends, people to see where things can go. And it's kind of something I think when Gina Gibney said, like, I've never been invited to the Joyce. My friends have been the executive director of the Joyce, but I think 3 decades later,
They just.
when they like
Yeah,
redid their revamped their company, they got invited to the Joyce Show season.
Right.
That's a different story, but like, still, like, these connections, these relationships matter. So it's interesting how we give space so much important when we're in it and we're like, oh, what does this feel like? And then, okay, where do we go from here? So I think we're starting something, and you wanted some notes on like what we learned from our conversations.
Sure, yeah,
So-
from all each other, the thought
Yeah.
leaders.
Yeah, so I think like
Partners.
the best, I think really nice, like I think with Marissa, there was like something beautiful she said about like, when the space does not match, when a space does, environment does not give you what your body requires, that place is causing you a disability. You are not disabled as a person, but the space is causing that. So
Right,
that just blew my mind. And like the
Yeah.
fact that I remember it, like that means it's somewhere in me.
Yeah.
It's safe. And like consciously thinking about how is every space okay for everybody, or is it not? And I'm consciously thinking now that disability isn't just about like, you know, what's happening to my body, but like, what is the environment doing?
right.
And then I think Dintai said something awesome, and as well as Aaron, of just product. What is your product? I literally sat down that night and journal, I'm like, what is my product? What am I working on? This is a business, right? Like, because for years I was having this, I'm sure all of us having fantasies about like, I want to do these things, but it's like, okay, what have I created so people can see, I can sell, I can sit and just watch my thing grow. I mean, seems like a long journey, right, for a lot of us, but we'll get there. Those are my like two biggest takeaways. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, wow.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Sorry.
No, it's valuable, don't be sorry.
Yeah.
No
And
apologies.
also like the quote, by, you're the average of,
Yeah.
the 5 people around you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you're the average of the 5 people that you surround yourself with.
Goosebumps. Yeah.
Wow.
It was, yeah, because then it was something where like, so if you find that something's lacking, you need to associate yourself with someone who can provide that for you.
Correct. Yeah.
Oh.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I also remember Marisa said, like, oh, who can we support and how to create our own space? If you find you're in somewhere you're not able to show your work in us. So how can you create a platform to people like you to share work? Yeah, and then really
Which goes hand in hand with that quote too, right? The 5 people and the sum of that. Also, if it's not, and it goes hand in hand with like a space disabling you in some way, right, or harming you. It's hard though, because I've heard this for my 25-year career as a brown woman born to immigrant parents in this country, right? Is always, it's hard because it's like, oh, okay, if there's no seat at the table, then great, what's the thing, like, then burn the table down or make your own thing, like, great. With what money and resources
Right.
for the gatekeepers, and why is all this onus on us to have to do it when our white counterparts are just allotted infinite sums and things, and we have to be, this is some of the stuff from the word back in the first days, like, we have to be the most excellent at all the things.
Correct.
You know, even related to the Angelino sort of artist slice of having to be the best in all the ways, but especially as a daughter of immigrants, it's like, or just immigrants, right? All the ways, it's like, okay, what did we say? Like, prove you belong. Keep proving you belong, continue to do so. Don't make too many waves at the same time. You know, all of these things are just part of our identity. That discomfort that we're talking about, like why we need to that, is just part of who I am. I don't speak to all of it, but to all of us, with that being uncomfortable all the time as artists is part of that too. So Carolyn and I were talking yesterday a little bit too, just like, how do you also, and at what point in your career do you feel brave and safe to break, to disrupt and speak up? Like, there's also places where you have to be like, I'm not gonna do this because it's gonna harm me, right? Or when can I do it, and like put the target on my face so that some of my siblings that are in this field don't have to. You know, it's just interesting, but like, how can we, and when can you disrupt in a giant institution like the music center or at an educational institution or wherever you are? Like, when do you feel safe or brave to do that, right? And that can change moment to moment, that's okay. You know, but having white allies or people that are in places of power or gatekeepers that are willing to help do the work, or that you have to sort of mess with to get them to learn and do the work. That's like part of it too, but again, it's our, like, the onus is always, I feel like, on us to like bear that. That exhaustion, that burden, right? Like all, Juneteenth was yesterday, right? So talk about all of our Black and African American siblings in the field that have to shoulder this weight constantly, right? This like unpaid labor of education, all of that. So just jumping on some of that, and this is stuff that you've been kind of grappling with in the work that you're making too. I love that these thought leaders stuck out so much to you. I also wondered if anyone sitting here today, that I keep mentioning you, they can't see you on camera, but I promise they're here. Any questions or comments or anything, for our panel, thanks, for our panelists, for our playdaters or the dancers?
I was thinking about something when you guys were talking about doing something outside of the norm of the style, genre of dance that you're used to. Dance goes through waves, right? Of where there's like a trend, right? There's trends in dance historically, or the 50s and 60s, it was like big and out there, and then you get into like Foxy in the 70s, and it brings it back to the body stuff. Is there anything like trend-wise that you feel like, for example, somebody like Foxy, he did it on purpose, right? He was trying to bend the trend. So is there anything that you guys feel like that maybe that was something you're doing, that in these traditional styles that you're taking, do they go through trends and you're bending it out,
Or trends affecting?
or trends affecting you at all?
Yeah.
Yes, as young choreographers. Or are there trends?
Like from my like creating process, I feel like usually for myself, I'm creating my own way, and I have my past way to create things and navigate things through. And just like for now, the way bending is like another energy comes in the space, and like maybe it shouldn't be this way. We can try another way. And I think this is the trend I'm breaking through right now. And I think for contemporary work, and every single artist have their own style, have their own way to think. But then like for this period of time, I really appreciate that could be someone sit there and they provide you really valuable advice of like, maybe there's another way. And it's like so lack of that nowadays, I think. It's really valuable.
So just throwing you off kilter. So,
yeah.
That's great. With one person want to answer Aaron's question. I was thinking maybe we're on the third channel, actually, just because I'm talking about trend and TikTok and Instagram and.
I usually like to be the trend.
Do you want to be?
Can you tell me?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes,
I like this. I am the trend.
so I'm on Instagram, and I started this whole movement called the men in skirts. And that actually came about like just from a very personal story of me loving the flair of skirts and the grace of skirts. And that really informed a lot of people, and it also resonated with a lot of people on social media. And it just became a trend. And more than a trend, it's kind of like a public movement. Everyone's really for it, and I'm also becoming so comfortable in the process. So yeah, I just feel like all of us have we come from very different situations and backgrounds and histories and also trends. And then when we come together, we go off of each other's trend. And yeah.
Great. Yeah.
I think I guess one thing to piggyback, just like with the Fosse example, I think that like Bob Fosse was able to bend the rules of what theater dance was, because there was an establishment of white men who created theater dance, but they're just I feel like us existing here is a trend in and of itself, because they're just like whatever we create is like brand new in some ways, because there just like aren't such a plethora of like faces and voices that have the experiences, life experience that we do. So yeah, I don't know, not to be like super deep about it, but I just think like it's less intentional, like trend setting, but it's just like existing and creating here is like reshaping the path of what this industry can look like.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, speaking, just even like what Suki was saying, that one other energy in the room that
Yeah.
that shifts, can shift the whole field, and it can do a small earthquake
Mhm.
that can have ricochets, right, throughout the entire sector. And then what that does to our public, our dancers, our audiences, our supporters, is really important. And just to say about not to be Professor McDaniel about it, thank you, Matt, is that, you know, Fossey learned from Jack Cole, who was from Denishan, who learned from classical Indian Bharatanatyam dancers from India. So just the typical nature of that, the depth of that, and then who's allowed to do it, and, you know,
We talked about classical being raised around jazz and tap, you know, which is classical black.
There you go.
So
Yeah.
we've all learned.
Yeah, and so, yeah, that's such a good question. We have about, I think Matt was giving me a 5, I'm not wearing my glasses, but I think he said 5 minutes are left. Can we take one more question from, if you have it, no pressure. Anyone else has a question? Or Kylie has a question, I think, from our social media.
Question is, what is something that you learned or felt inspired by or taken from your partner, and just something you just want to use and continue in your future works?
Ooh, that's good.
Should we do a rapid fire?
Yeah, do it.
So,
Wait,
something you've learned from.
yeah, one big takeaway from your Playdate partner. You don't have to go first, whoever feels brave to go first.
So many things.
Yeah, I think from Tuki, I've taken like how to look at something from a different angle and ask the question from like a different perspective. So like turn your head a little and ask it this way. See something from that one.
Nice.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing, like, sometimes just asking the question, why? Is something that I learned from Ramita, like, yeah, kind of just finding a different perspective about it, probably simplifying it, and not making it too complex.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
And in the other way, I think I've been challenged to like lengthen and elongate and find more narrative through things and like, yeah, just expand and like dig in more.
And also, like, for me, because I ask too many questions, have self-doubts a lot, and like, what I learned from Baka is, trusting what you're doing. Yeah, give yourself a credit.
Yeah. Oh, that's nice. I love that. Yeah, our imposter syndrome runs deep a little bit. Yeah. Talk about feeling legitimized in certain spaces, but then carrying that weight of that. That's interesting. I love hearing that. Any, we've asked, there's a couple that we've asked her, and I think we've heard a lot about. I was gonna ask you one thing. One kind of hope for me, it's not that it has to be that you'll write a, you know, NIFA and DP grant based on what you did here at Playdate, but is there any thought or idea of some future collaborations with yourself and the artists that you've been paired with, or different artists here, or is it anything that's been happening in the space?
Oh, yeah, I think it, I believe it all starts with the connection. So, you know, with the people who, you know, I have met during this residency, it started with this connection, and yeah, I think definitely it is going to transcend to the future, and I already have ideas. Yeah.
For transcending. Jamal and I had an idea that we made our speed date. We're like, okay, it's okay if we don't work together right now. Like, we'll find another time to do this.
Love
Like,
that.
let's do, like, don't worry. So that's where we're like, yeah, it's fine. Let's not work together this
Yeah.
time. You know, like, because there was a little like, should we try to work together and talk to the group? And that came up, and I was like, no, let's let things be as they are. Because I know, like, I don't know when I'll get to work with Tuki. Like, would I have like been like, Tuki, come to New York, or I'm gonna come to LA?
Right.
Because these guys are East Coasters.
Mhm.
I feel like for me, the biggest challenge would be to work with Ramita. Like, how do I fit myself in her world? But it would be really fascinating to see.
Like we also have classical,
We
like,
do,
but in different.
But I don't
styles,
want
so,
to use
yeah.
that. Like, I want to
Yeah,
push
yeah.
myself to like not touch that world at all.
right.
Like, how do I like enter Ramita's world with and like push myself to like see things in a different way? So hopefully,
That's great.
yeah.
Anything else to add to your Renaissance?
Yeah. I think like just, now we have Zoom and then we can fly, like we can be bicos and it's definitely like, will be a lot of fun to work with you guys in the future and like. I'm also really into commercial world and love theatrical, immersive. Yeah.
And also the great thing is that we keep traveling. We love traveling.
Yeah.
I think
I'm
all of
sure,
us are
yeah.
really excited to do it. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm also excited to see, I guess, like the next cohorts of Playdate because I think I was telling you, like, I have so many friends who I think would like
Same.
love this and they're like, wait, what do you get to do?
They're also
And
asking already, like, how's it going?
How
I'm
do- yeah,
like,
yeah,
I'll tell you.
yeah,
when
no,
we're
it's
back, like,
and so, yeah, so I think like that will expand the pool of collaborators.
I think so too. Yeah.
Oh, I love hearing that. That's so nice. Yeah, well, we are just so lucky to have the four of you, brilliant minds, bodies, movers, shakers. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you for applying and just putting your, discomfort into it in all of the ways. It's just being so generous and brave with yourselves and your time. Like we're just so grateful to have you. Thank you, beautiful dancers that came in. Thanks for being part of it. Big thanks to John Paul. Yeah, and of course to Matt Cook, our executive director. And our wonderful supporters and board members and staff and our co-partners with the center. Thank you all out there for continuing to support us. Please come June 23rd, 7:30 p.m. at Stomping Ground LA. We'll have little snippets on social media that Kylie will put up if you can't make it out there. But look forward to future Playdate sessions and collaborations. Maybe we'll put these four on the next jury. It's gonna be accepted. And also there's so many amazing things coming up at the music center this summer, including, I don't know, a really fun Bollywood night taught by some wicked blue-haired Indian woman. August 18th. But the opening is also this Friday, the 23rd. So after you come to Playdate, come out to the music center. The first night is hip hop, right, girl? This Friday. And watch American Born Chinese because that's our favorite new show. And thank you so much for joining us. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.